If you're tired of surface-level history and want the truth behind the front lines, subscribe now. Today we're breaking open a forgotten piece of the past that proves battlefield dominance isn't always about firepower. Sometimes it's about understanding how the enemy thinks. December 9th, 1944. Pre-dawn hours in Germany's Hürtgen Forest. A place so dense, so hostile, that entire units stalled for weeks under constant sniper fire. Visibility was limited, movement was lethal, and German marksmen controlled the terrain with near total dominance. American casualties mounted daily, not from frontal assaults, but from unseen rifles buried deep in timber and snow. Into this environment stepped Sergeant William Bill Ashworth of the 28th Infantry Division. A Kentucky coal miner turned sniper, raised on marksmanship long before doctrine or manuals shaped his thinking. What he would do over the next 4 days would become one of the most lethal counter-sniper actions in United States Army history, not because of superior equipment, but because he broke the rules. Why traditional sniper doctrine failed in the Hürtgen Forest. German snipers in the Hürtgen were veterans, many from the Eastern Front. They fired only when certain, then relocated instantly. Traditional counter-sniper methods relied on waiting, patience, and matching skill with skill. That approach failed. The forest absorbed sound, masked movement, and punished hesitation. Ashworth recognized that the real problem wasn't marksmanship. Oh no, it was visibility. You see, German snipers were practically invisible because they never needed to move unless they chose to. If he wanted to kill them, he had to make them reveal themselves without firing a single shot. How did a matchbox become a weapon, you might wonder? Well, Ashworth's solution came from a GI-issue matchbox. German doctrine had trained soldiers to identify threats by watching for light, muzzle flash or movement. When light appeared, they were trained to orient on it, mark the position, and prepare to engage. Ashworth decided to weaponize that very instinct. Before dawn, he struck a single match against tree bark, held it for 3 seconds, and then extinguished it. He immediately shifted to a separate firing position with his rifle already aimed at the terrain overlooking the match location. When a German observer adjusted position to get a better view of where the light had appeared, that movement broke their camouflage. Ashworth fired once. The sniper never saw him. Why the technique worked repeatedly? This wasn't luck, it was psychology. Training creates reflexes. Under stress, soldiers follow drilled responses faster than conscious thought. German observers could not ignore a light source. They were conditioned to react to it. Each match forced a decision. Look or don't look, and looking even slightly was enough. Over the next 96 hours, Ashworth refined the technique. He varied match positions, distances, timing and sequencing. Sometimes he waited seconds, sometimes minutes. Sometimes he used multiple matches to force observers to track several points, creating predictable head movements. Each adjustment created a target window measured in fractions of a second. Ashworth didn't need prolonged exposure. He needed confirmation. How adaptability defeated countermeasures. Once German units realized matches were involved, orders went out not to react to light. Ashworth adapted again. He began using matches as backlighting, placing them behind suspected enemy positions. For 3 seconds, silhouettes appeared. He memorized positions, extinguished the match, then engaged from darkness. He coordinated with artillery observers, using match patterns to draw German command elements out of cover. Officers exposed themselves to assess perceived infiltration, only to be targeted by artillery moments later. By December 12th, German sniper activity in Ashworth sector collapsed entirely. Infantry advances resumed and, well, casualties dropped to near zero. What modern soldiers and survivalists can learn from this? Ashworth's method isn't about matches. It's about understanding conditioned behavior. He identified how the enemy was trained to think, then built a system that exploited it. The principle applies far beyond sniping. In any adversarial environment, patterns reveal vulnerabilities. Training creates predictability, and predictability can be manipulated. Ashworth also refused to formalize the technique. He understood that, once a tactic becomes doctrine, it loses power. Surprise was the weapon, and once surprise vanished, so would effectiveness. Why this story still matters. Ashworth recorded 119 confirmed kills in 4 days. But honestly, the real impact wasn't the number. It was the collapse of enemy confidence. German soldiers began fearing light itself. They avoided observation entirely, blinding themselves to battlefield information. That is psychological warfare at its purest. After the war, Ashworth returned home quietly. The matchbox that made history sits in a museum, overlooked by most visitors. No medals explain what it represented. It wasn't recklessness, it was insight. If this story sharpened your understanding of how wars are really fought through minds as much as weapons, subscribe to Warfare Frontlines and share this with someone who respects the details history often skips.